The sun was a vengeful god, hanging low in the vast, indifferent sky, casting long distorted shadows across the endless scrubland of the Arizona territory. Every breath was a furnace blast, every movement an act of defiance against the oppressive heat. On a small rocky ridge, overlooking a landscape that shimmered with heat haze, a man knelt, offering a canteen. His name was Silas, a name as parched and unyielding as the land he traversed. His face, etched with the deep lines of sun and sorrow, was partially obscured by the brim of a wide-brimmed black hat. His eyes, though weary, held a steadfast intensity as he looked at the woman before him. Her name was Ilara, and she sat slumped on a fallen tree trunk, her slight frame a testament to exhaustion and trauma. Her dress, once white, was now streaked with dirt and blood, a stark tableau of suffering against the fading light. Her fair hair, disheveled and clinging to her face, offered little protection from the elements. A slow trickle of blood ran down her left arm, staining her hand a vivid crimson. Her lips were cracked, her eyes wide with a desperate thirst that mirrored the desolate landscape. Silas held out a metal canteen, its surface beaded with moisture. "Here," he said, his voice a low, raspy murmur, like stones tumbling in a dry creek bed. "Just a little. Sip it slow." Ilara's gaze was fixed on the canteen, an almost feral hunger in her eyes. Her bloody hand trembled as she reached for it, her fingers brushing his. The touch was fleeting, but in that brief contact, Silas felt the raw fragility of her existence. He'd found her just an hour ago, stumbling aimlessly across the unforgiving terrain, a ghost of a woman in a land of dust and despair. He was a scout, a tracker, hired to find lost cattle, but the tracks he'd followed had led him not to a wandering herd, but to the site of a massacre. A small settler's wagon, overturned and burnt, its contents scattered and plundered, and Ilara, somehow, miraculously, still alive. The Apache, by the look of the arrowheads still lodged in the wagon planks, had been swift and brutal. Silas had seen the bodies of her family, a man, an older woman, a child lying broken and still, already claimed by the harsh justice of the desert. Ilara, shot in the arm and left for dead, had somehow dragged herself away, driven by a will to survive that defied all logic. Now, as she took the canteen, her movements were clumsy, her thirst overwhelming. She tried to gulp it down, but Silas gently took her arm, steadying her. "Slow, Ilara. Too much too fast will make you sick." She whimpered, a small, pained sound, but obeyed, taking a cautious sip. The water, cool and life-giving, seemed to awaken something within her. Her eyes fluttered, then opened wide, focusing on Silas. Who are you?" she rasped, her voice a dry whisper. "Silas," he replied, his gaze unwavering. "Silas Kane. I'm a scout. Found you walking. My family," she began, her voice cracking. "Are they?" He shook his head, a grim shadow passing over his face. "I'm sorry, Ilara. They're gone." The Apache left nothing. The words, though expected, hit her with the force of a physical blow. Her shoulders sagged, and a single tear, a precious commodity in this arid land, traced a path down her dust-caked cheek. "No," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Not my ma. Not little Annie." Silas remained silent, letting her grief wash over her. There was no comfort he could offer that would truly ease this pain. He'd seen it too many times. The frontier broke more hearts than it sustained. After a long moment, she took another slow sip of water, then handed the canteen back to him, her fingers still stained with blood. "Thank you," she managed, her voice stronger this time, albeit hoarse. "Thank you, Silas." He nodded, recapping the canteen. He knew they couldn't stay here. The Apache might return, or other dangers lurked in the twilight. "We need to move. It ain't safe here after dark. There's a mission, a day's ride north. Padre Esteban, he'll help you." Ilara looked around the desolate landscape, her eyes hollow. "Move where?" "I have nothing. No one, my home, my family, gone. What do I have left? Your life, Silas said, his voice firm, resolute. And that's worth fighting for. That's worth living for. Your family would want you to live. She looked at him, truly seeing him for the first time. The quiet strength in his gaze, the lines of hardship around his eyes that spoke of his own battles. He wasn't just a rescuer, he was a survivor. I can't, she whispered, shaking her head. I can't walk. My leg, it's twisted. She tried to move it, and a sharp gasp of pain escaped her. Silas knelt beside her, gently examining her ankle. It was swollen, discolored. Not broken, I don't think, he murmured, his fingers surprisingly gentle. But bad enough. You won't be walking on it. My horse is a few miles back. I had to leave her down in the arroyo, out of sight. I'll have to carry you. Alara's eyes widened in alarm, a flash of fear replacing the grief. No, I don't want to be a burden. You ain't a burden, Ilara, he said, meeting her gaze steadily. You're a human being in need of help, and I'm here to give it. Now, can you put your arm around my neck? Reluctantly, slowly, she shifted, her bloody hand reaching for his neck. He carefully lifted her, her slight weight almost insignificant in his strong arms. She flinched as he moved, the pain in her ankle flaring, but she bit back a cry. Hold on, he instructed, beginning to move, carefully picking his way over the rocky terrain. The walk was slow, agonizing. Silas moved with a quiet determination, his eyes scanning the horizon, his ears attuned to every sound. Ilara, her head resting against his shoulder, felt the steady thrum of his heartbeat, a grounding rhythm in the chaos of her mind. The scent of dust and leather, mixed with his own faint, masculine smell, filled her nostrils. She found a strange, fragile comfort in his proximity. By the time they reached his horse, a sturdy Mustang named Shadow, the last vestiges of twilight were fading, replaced by the inky blackness of the desert night. The stars, unobscured by city lights, blazed with an intensity she had never witnessed, a cold, indifferent beauty. Silas carefully set Ilara down against a rocky outcrop, then quickly unsaddled Shadow, hobbling her to prevent her from wandering. He built a small, smokeless fire, the flickering flames a tiny island of warmth and light in the overwhelming darkness. He offered her more water, then some dried meat and hardtack from his saddlebags. This time, she ate with a touch more appetite, the food giving her back a semblance of strength. Thank you, she whispered, looking at him across the small fire. For everything. You didn't have to. Yes, I did, he said, his gaze fixed on the flames. A man don't leave another soul to die out here, not if he can help it. You're a good man, Silas Kane, she said, a faint smile touching her lips, a fragile blossom in the desert of her grief. He grunted, a non-committal sound. He didn't see himself as good. He was just a man who had seen too much, done too much, and was trying, in his own quiet way, to make some small measure of amends for a past that haunted him. They spent the rest of the night in silence, punctuated by the mournful howl of a distant coyote and the chirping of crickets. Silas took the first watch, his rifle across his knees, his eyes scanning the darkness. Ilara, wrapped in his blanket, drifted in and out of a restless sleep, haunted by nightmares that flickered like shadows at the edge of her. Consciousness. Dawn broke with a spectacular display of color, painting the sky in fiery reds and oranges. The air was still cool, a brief respite before the sun began its relentless climb. Silas packed their meager camp, careful to douse the fire completely. He helped Ilar onto Shadow, then mounted behind her, his arms going around her to hold the reins. Her small body felt fragile against his chest. The ride to the mission was long and arduous. Ilara's ankle throbbed with every step Shadow took, but she gritted her teeth, refusing to complain. She learned to lean into Silas's strength, to trust his steady hands on the reins, his quiet guidance. They talked little, but a silent understanding grew between them. She learned that he had once been a miner, then a prospector, chasing the elusive glint of gold before turning to scouting. He learned that she and her family had been heading to California, lured by the promise of fertile land and a new beginning. It was all a lie, she said, her voice bitter, as they rode through a particularly desolate stretch of land. A false promise. This land, it just takes. It never gives. It gives, Alara, Silas said, his gaze sweeping across the vast expanse. It gives strength. It gives resilience. It gives you the will to survive. You just gotta learn to see it. She was silent for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. Maybe, she whispered. Maybe you're right. They reached the mission late that afternoon, a small whitewashed adobe structure nestled in a valley, a beacon of civilization in the vast wilderness. Wildest. A kind-faced man with weary eyes greeted them at the gate. Bless you, my son, the padre said, looking at Alara with compassion. Another soul, delivered from the wilderness. He took Alara in, offering her comfort, food, and a clean bed. A local woman, skilled in healing, tended to her wounds, bandaging her arm and ankle. Silas watched, a quiet sentinel, until he was sure she was safe, cared for,